Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Zelenskyy have finally met face-to-face after a failed attempt at last week's G7 summit. The pair had a discussion at the NATO summit held in The Hague, and both leaders described it as a positive step for the conflict unfolding on the ground in Ukraine. Tessa Bennett joins us live in studio with more on the meeting and what came out of it. Tessa?
Manisa, Trump indicated today he might consider providing more of the Patriot missiles that Ukraine needs to respond to mounting Russian strikes. But he noted the war may be far from over, saying there's a possibility Russian President Vladimir Putin has territorial aspirations beyond Ukraine.
Do you think you'll meet with Zelenskyy when you're there?
Yeah, probably. I'll see him. Yeah.
What would you say to him?
Say, how you doing? They're tough. He's in a tough situation. Should have never been there.
At the two-day NATO summit in The Hague, U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy held a 50-minute meeting on the sidelines. Zelenskyy, who notably wore a dark suit-style jacket to the meeting as opposed to the informal military garb he was criticized for wearing to the White House, described the meeting as long and substantive, saying it covered all of the important issues that needed to be addressed. For his part, Trump agreed to consider sending Ukraine more of the Patriot air defense missiles used to counter rising Russian strikes, leaving the door open to further military assistance. He had previously shown no sign of resuming the donations of weaponry to Ukraine that his predecessor Joe Biden had instituted.
When we're talking about U.S. aid, it's absolutely imperative for Ukraine's maintenance of its effort on the battlefield, and especially now since we're likely going to see an impact on Iran's inability to assist Russia. It may be the case that any sort of increase in aid can have a positive effect on Ukraine's fighting capacity.
The U.S.-made Patriot batteries are crucial for Ukraine to be able to shoot down Russian ballistic missiles, which have increasingly rained down on Ukrainian cities over the past few weeks. In the last week alone, dozens of people have been killed in Kyiv and the southeastern regional capital of Dnipro as a result of these Russian strikes. But as the war rages on, Trump also alluded to the fact that Russia may have plans outside of Ukraine. He was asked by a reporter if he agreed with the statement made by the U.S. chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that Putin had territorial ambitions beyond Ukraine.
Same possible. I mean, it's possible. I know one thing: he'd like to settle. He'd like to get out of this thing. It's a mess for him. He called the other day. He said, "Can I help you with Iran?" I said, "No, you can help me with Russia." I consider him a person that's I think been misguided. I'm very surprised, actually. I thought we would have had that settled.
While Zelenskyy walked away from the meeting with a more secure relationship with the United States, unlike last year, this year's summit declaration did not contain any mention of future NATO membership for the country.
The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom mentioned that there is no softening of Europe's commitment to assistance to Ukraine. And for now, the single most important priority is to decrease the fighting. If membership is granted while the fighting continues, it means the entire NATO bloc would be drawn into the conflict, and that's certainly not something that the bloc as a whole would like to see.
Some leaders who attended the international gathering took things a step further. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban says NATO has no responsibility for Ukraine.
NATO has no business in Ukraine. Ukraine is not member of NATO, neither Russia. My job is to keep it as it is.
Trump says the ability for the U.S. to supply Ukraine with Patriot missiles may be hindered by supply constraints as they're in high demand. The U.S. is currently supplying the same type of weapon to Israel.